Hey, good morning, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to Raise TV. Okay, so this week has been a week of so in the UK and Northern Hemisphere, we've had Samhain, All Souls, Halloween, where the veil between the worlds has been incredibly thin. Lots has happened this week. I'm quite tired. We're in the middle, so within our Raise community, we're in the middle of a 17-day reconnection experience. And that is essentially when we reconnect in with ourselves, with each other, with spirit, with nature, with our guides, just to see where we're all at, and we're just sort of checking in where we're going. And this is for this group we're holding particularly at the moment is for people we've been working with for quite a while, and sort of revisioning Raise, our community, what it means, who is it for, and what we offer. So it's good to sort of check on things occasionally in life as you go through the year. And Samhain this time of year is actually the Celtic New Year, so it's a really good time to assess what you no longer need to keep holding on to, and then like what have you got now, and visioning a bit for the future. So we're doing that, and yes, it's all going to be and we also in the UK we've had an incredible amount of, well, certainly in southeast England where I am, we've had an incredible amount of rain, wind, that's kept us all awake and flooded everywhere. And I walked out this morning, it's the first day of sunshine we've had for quite a few days, and I took the dogs around the field, and there's a real clarity in the air. There's lots of water standing in muddy puddles and things, but it feels like there's been a real cleansing, a real blowing out of old energies, and we're kind of starting afresh. And our group did a live Zoom call last night, and we got some guidance. It was actually, so while we were doing our circle, and we call it like a love hug and an activation, and during that we were all I was leading it, we were all in meditation, and one of the group, their printer suddenly kicked into action and printed out a blank page, and we have a part of the session where we speak into a fire and we ask the fire a question maybe, or we receive from the fire what we need. And I had actually asked, like, what is our next step within Raise, and for Chris and myself, and it was a blank page that was the message for us. So I wonder if this conversation is okay. I need to introduce myself first. My name is Hannah Velten. I work with my brother in spirit, Christian. He went missing in Africa, in Mali, West Africa, in 2003. But as I'm going to share, we essentially pulled in and used and attracted the power of love, and found each other, managed to heal and transform our relationship and our loss, and now we help other people, and we use the love and the light that we have between us and with our guide team in spirit, and all of nature, like everything around us, and we shine that brightly. And people who are in the darkness, and maybe why you're watching this film, where you found us, if you're feeling like you're in some darkness, you're a bit lost, you're a bit confused, you've had a loss, a bereavement, or you're just like, what am I supposed to be doing with my life? This is a question that I continually asked. I think I've probably asked it all my life, really, until now, because I know what I'm doing with my life. But yes, this feeling that of maybe you're wanting a blank page. Maybe you are wanting to turn a new page in your journal and really start afresh. And I'm going to talk into that today. That's what needs to be talked in today, or that's what I'm being shown. So when I do, so these films, the way I work with Chris mainly is through tarot cards. So without really connecting, it's like a really easy way of connecting. So before I do these films, I would draw usually 3 tarot cards. There's nothing frightening about tarot cards. Absolutely nothing. I've said this in previous films. It was my gateway into the spirit world. Anyway, we use tarot cards. So I get 3 cards, which kind of show me where we're going. And then as I speak, Chris comes in and channels what he needs to channel, and I put in my experiences as well. And that's how we work together. You might hear Chris in my voice. You might see him in my features. But if you can't and whatever, that's fine. You can just use the lion who's behind me. He kind of has Chris's energy contained in him. Yeah, so blank pages. I'll tell you when I got to my blank page, or the need to turn into a blank page, and I'll share Chris's blank page as well. So, and just see if you can see yourself in how we were. Because it's our story, but it's a universal story. There's it's almost mythical. I mean, yeah, I guess it's almost a myth. My daughter's doing myths and legends at school at the moment, and I can just see our story. The more I've taken myself out of the story and sort of looked down on it, I can see it has so many universal themes. So we tell our story. So yeah, so my needing a blank page. So Chris had been missing for 12 years. And I had always had this underlying grief and loss, but I just got on with life. I mean, life was busy, had children, very young children, married, was writing a book, and was just busy. And eventually I realized that my grief was there, and it kept rising up. And it was particularly when I had my children and they got old enough to ask about like Uncle Christian, and I literally couldn't talk about him without crying. And I would I think one of the really points where I thought, oh my God, I've got to do something. We were in Brighton, which is a city by the coast in the southeast of England, and there were some homeless people, young men, on the street, and I walked past them and I just burst into tears. And I thought, oh my God, that could be Chris. That could be, you know, him in Africa, still needing help, needing support, needing love. And I just it sort of really totally immobilized me. And I knew that I had to do something. You can only change your life yourself. You need to make the decision. No one's going to come and be your knight in shining armor. They aren't. They will be. You have all the support that you need, but unless you make that first step and that decision to turn over the page, start afresh, it doesn't matter what's gone on in the past. Like now, my decision on that blank page was that I had to find a way to move through my grief. And I also knew in my heart that I was going to find Christian. I was going to find him. And that's like an intuition. It's an inner knowing. Certain things that happen in my life, and the possibility of me finding him after 12 years suddenly came up. And I thought, oh, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to find him. And that was my clean slate. And that was the start of me stepping into my destiny life. And we're going to talk about destiny life quite a lot here. So destiny life is the life that you came here to live. You chose the life that you want to live. Fated life, or the life that you might be sort of living at the moment, it's a way of you're living the life that sort of others expect of you, maybe. So the way you've been educated, the way you've been brought up, the family that you're in, the community that you're in, the groups that you belong to. It could be your life you don't really feel is your own. And obviously we all have responsibilities, and we have things that we need to do. But are you actually living your destiny life? Are you living the life that you came here to lead? And my answer to that back then was absolutely no, I'm not. I am not here. I am not supposed to be here trapped in grief, trapped in pain, in sadness. That is not the life that I choose for myself. I don't think it was a conscious decision, but it was always like, I don't choose this life. I've got to create a life. And I remember when I had children, I consciously created my working life because I started to write. It was something that I could do around having the children. It meant I could be at home with them, but have space. I had a wonderful lady who used to take them for a few hours a day when they were tiny. And that just gave me a few hours a day space to write, because I'd always been a writer. But that kind of kept me, that was me. That's what I love to do. I love to write. I can't go without a day without writing. It's a bad day for me if I don't write. I have to get everything down on a page. Or speaking. I'm loving speaking again now. That was something that I've sort of came into during lockdown, actually, with having to use Zoom, and I just continued. And I love, this is my expression. This is how Chris and I can express ourselves. Yeah, so I had to make that decision to create my life. Nobody was going to, I didn't have a role model for how I could heal my grief or find Chris. It was it looked to be impossible. But I would say now that it looked improbable, but it wasn't impossible. So whatever situation you're in life, and if it looks like there's no way out of this situation, yeah, you just think about your situation. Certainly having a missing brother that had disappeared off the face of the earth and had been missing for 12 years. I mean, it's improbable you're going to find him. And I knew I'd kind of find him alive. Obviously he is alive. He's just in a different form. But it wasn't the life we kind of expected, or what we expected to happen. It's actually in many ways so much better. And that was our destiny. Like Chris and I had decided this before we came into birthing into this life, that was what was going to happen. And it's been a hard lesson to learn that, because I didn't remember that. I just thought, I've lost my brother. And that's kind of like the end of it. But as we've gone through our own journey, it's now been 20 years, or it will be in February next year, 2023. That will be like 20 years we've been on this journey. And it's only now that we can really see like the bigger purpose behind what has happened, because it is to share our story to help you. If you're watching this film, if you feel like you're in the darkness, like all we can show is like be sort of possibility models for what is possible, and how you can create your own life, like be your own savior. No, we couldn't find Chris in the physical at all. So I had to find a different way. I had to find a different way to like not just use the senses that we all use in life, but to actually go deeper and find another way. And that was through I kind of got beaten into submission by not being able to find him. In 2016 I did 6 months of internet search and still nothing. And I got so beaten into submission that I just went, okay, I surrender. I accept I can't find him on my own. I need support. And I just sort of did a little ritual, didn't know what I was doing, but just lit a candle, had Chris's picture, a few other things on this on the floor, really, in my bedroom. And my son was there as well. He was tiny and he was kind of wanting to help me. My children are very much they're very connected in spirit as well. I think all children are, and I've allowed them to have that connection and to do what they say, what comes through them. I've let them do what they want, or what they felt. And yeah, my son wanted to be part of this ritual with me, so I let him, and we just released everything to a higher power. And so you obviously are supported, you are helped. It's like allowing that love and that light to come in to your darkness, but you have to make that invitation and that opening. So it really is down to you. Yeah, so that was my sort of destiny moment when I just knew the pathway was finding Chris. And it was a pathway that was the spirit path, the spiritual pathway. Fearful. Like, it's not a... I know so many people, having done this for many years now, openly, so many people have had experiences with spirit. They've heard the call, they've had the touch, they've had sort of synchronicities happening in their life, and a lot of people block it out. There's a fear around it. There's what like me saying, when I was younger, I used to be connected in, and I used to say things and be like, where did that come from? Don't say that. There's a lot of fear around speaking about experiences, that connection experience that you have. So we tend to keep quiet about it. But Chris and I, in our raised community, it's a sacred space. It's a safe space to be able to openly talk about your experiences of spirit, and the love that can just come through and dissolve all the darkness if you kind of allow it to happen. Yeah, so that was my sort of destiny life, and it was to find Chris initially, and that, like, the purpose evolved and changed. Like, the same purpose is it doesn't stay the same. It evolves as you grow. Yeah, so my initial destiny was to find Chris, and then which was another couple of years, once we worked out that Chris was actually dead, not alive. He died unconscious, so in a drowning, and his body was not his body was obviously dead, but his spirit wasn't aware of it. So anyway, once we found out that he was actually dead, our purpose was to heal and transform each other and our grief and our loss. I mean, Chris was really angry, really angry, as I was angry for him for going in the first place, which we'll talk about. But I was angry going to Africa on this solo expedition. I was angry about him doing it in the first place. He was angry that it was cut short, because this was his big trip. I mean, he'd been working up to this big trip for a long time, 6-month solo trip. So yeah, we had to heal and transform all that grief, that loss, anger. I mean, anger, rage. There's usually underneath all of that is a loss or a grief. So there was a lot of healing that we had to do between us and the whole situation. Just as an aside, I had a conversation with somebody this week, and they said, do you know, are you wanting justice for Chris, or are you seeking justice? And I said, no, not at all. We've done our forgiveness and our understanding of the people involved in Chris's death. Like, what was the point of holding on to the chains that would have kept Chris and myself firmly rooted in the past? I mean, that is in the past. Like, there's a whole film where we did a live Facebook film where we were working with like the ringleader of Chris's death and releasing him. He was actually in spirit, and he is in spirit now, and Chris took him up. So and I had to be the one. I've watched the film back actually this week because I was thinking, why aren't we seeking justice and angry still? And I was like, well, I had to be the one to forgive this person. Chris had understood and accepted what had happened, but it was also me that I needed to understand, forgive. And I was asked, you know, will you forgive? And I was like, well, yeah, of course I will. That I've got no reason to keep holding on to this. It's hurting me. It's not hurting. And in fact, it was hurting us all. But anyway, that's probably another story. But yes, that was the purpose, to really release the past and all the chains that were keeping myself and Chris locked into the past. So, because we could be here now, like both alive, rebirthed, and telling our story and sharing the love. So then after we'd kind of done that, the purpose then became like, well, what are we going to do with this relationship? I mean, how can it help other people? Because once you've worked with yourself and you've found your way out of the darkness, you're going to have done that with support, with guidance. But once you've got out of that, what's the purpose now? It's to share it, to share and spread the good news. I get that a lot. Oh my goodness, there is so much fear in the media. We are influenced so much by the media and social media, everything. So Chris and I, the part we play is to share our good news, and that ripples out to whoever needs to be hearing it and attracts them out of their darkness, I guess, into what's possible with the power of love. And then the purpose now. So Chris and I have been working one-to-one with people and in groups for my throat is dry, sorry, but past 2 years, I guess. But we are very much now, right, the situation in the world, there's so much cynicism, there's so much fear, there's so much disconnection, and we have this vision. I did a vision with Chris yesterday where we visioned ahead to 100 years and what we would like to see and what we would love to be part of. And what I experienced was this complete calmness, peace, like love, literally, relationships, communities. There wasn't any separation. It was just all connected, just flowing with life. So obviously we're all going to get challenges in life. We're all going to, seasons change, like we've just had Samhain, where we're moving towards the into winter, so through in the northern hemisphere, autumn, that time of change, releasing and quietening, and the inner work. It's also times like bereavement, times like menopause, times like where there's a lessening and a loss of something. That time, like, we shouldn't be fearful of that time. That time is full of beauty, it's full of love and light, but we just have to flow with life and accept it. And I know that seems a difficult, in situations where grief is very raw, or you're really feeling the loss of something acutely. But Chris and I, the only way we could find peace and healing and transformation, as I said, with that sort of surrendering and accepting the change. And actually, when we found out that Chris was actually dead, we had to do, that was what we had to do. So I say our healing and transforming of our grief at that point, but we also had to surrender and accept that he was dead. But we were like energetically and spiritually the closest we'd ever been. And that's what we show people now. So these times of transition and what appears to be loss is actually where we are incredibly close to spirit, close to reconnection to our true self, to like it's an opportunity of really plugging ourselves back into who we truly are, what we're truly here to do, our destiny path. Like we don't need to care what other people think about us. That's the time when, that's the time when we just can be ourselves and really reconnect. And this is part of, I guess, part of telling our story, and part of the message that we want to get across is that flowing with these transitions is so much better than fighting them and denying them. So I guess we want to help people come back to life, and that's our sort of destiny life. So Chris's destiny life, so there are several moments he's shown me quite a few destiny moments over the years, but I'll just tell you a couple. So when he was in the cadets at school, he went to a boarding school, which is where Chris and I sort of separated after having a very close childhood bond together on a farm. He went off to boarding school, and when he was, I think it was his 17th birthday, he went on a parachute jump with the army cadets, and it's too long to go into the story now, but he got his legs tangled in the wires, and he was hanging upside down, sort of plummeting to earth, and he had a near-death experience where he was saying, he told me when he was alive, he started to get like a film reel running through his head of his whole life. And he was sort of mentally saying goodbye to everybody, and like happens in seconds. And then he said it was like, I just heard a voice saying, "It's not your time, Chris. Reach up, untangle your legs, you'll be fine." So he sort of came to and went, okay. And he managed to untangle his legs, he was a strong guy, and pull himself up somehow and untangle his legs, and he came down to earth. And that moment was the moment where he kind of searched for a long time. We were talking about this last night in our circle, about searching for purpose. And the more you search for purpose, I think we've come to the conclusion that the less likely you are to find it. You almost have to just keep putting one step in front of the other, and asking, like, in this moment, how can I make a difference right now? And for Chris, that was working with children. It was traveling, it was writing, exploring, and he touched a lot of people's lives, and a lot of people touched his life as he was moving towards Africa. And then another moment was I don't know if I've got the book here, hang on. Oh, I do, bear with me. This was the book that changed Chris's destiny towards Mungo Park, the explorer, Scottish explorer, and Africa. And yeah, this book, Water Music by T. Hassan Boyle. Sorry, I've pronounced that totally wrong. I'm a bit dyslexic, so I'm not very good with names and things like that. Anyway, this book is all about it's Mungo Park is fictionally one of the main characters in here, and he goes from the Scottish Highlands to sort of darkest Africa. And Mungo Park is obviously a real person who Chris found out about, and he was the Scottish explorer, same age as Chris when Chris went to Africa. And Mungo was offered a role to find the source of the river Niger, and he did 2 travels to Western Africa, and Chris was marking the bicentenary of these travels and was following in Mungo's footprints. And Chris was adamant that he wanted to do this alone. He wanted to experience it as much as Mungo did. I mean, Mungo went with a huge entourage of people, and it all caused I think Chris made the decision. Chris had always traveled solo, and he made the decision that he wanted to be solo. He had film cameras that a production company had given him, so he had a stills camera and a video camera, which I must mention about. But he wanted to go alone. I mean, the production company were like, I'm not sure this is a good idea. You should really take somebody with you. And Chris was like adamant, no. And he said to me, I don't want to be, I want to do this alone. I don't want to have to work into somebody else's schedule. He was adamant he wanted to do this alone. And this was his destiny path. I was talking to this in a conversation this week. And there was no stopping Chris from this. It was his destiny life, and there was no stopping me from my spiritual exploration of how to get hold of Chris, how to find him. It was a hard road for both of us in our different separate parallel journeys, I should say. And people warned us against these journeys. I mean, I was always being warned about, what are you doing sitting in your bedroom for hours just meditating? And to the outside world, it looked mad. And it totally took over my life. It was an obsession. I stopped, we had a business ghostwriting memoirs, and I just stopped that. And I don't know how we've survived financially, to be honest. But for years, this was our journey. And for Chris, the same thing. People were having visions of premonitions, telling him not to go, and he would laugh them all off. It'd be fine. And our mum, he used to talk, because I was living in Cornwall at the time when Chris was planning, and he moved back home with mum and dad just to save some money and to be able to plan his trip. It was 6 months worth of planning he'd done. He just shrugged mum always used to say, oh, bloody Bamako, because he used to mention Bamako all the time, as being the place where, after he'd walked on foot and with a donkey, and then later a cart, like after he'd done his sort of solo walking, he would meet the river Niger at Bamako in Mali, the capital of Mali. And from then on, that was like the first leg of the journey, right from the coast all the way into Mali. That would be like the first part of the journey, and then on the river would be a second part, and then down to Niger, to the other coast would be the second part. But ironically, or another premonition, I guess, Bamako was actually where we lost Chris. He disappeared. So all the searches we did got to Bamako, and he'd just disappeared. We know now why. But yes, Bamako was very much and still is a focus. I'll tell you about that in a minute of this story. So yeah, mum was always like, oh, if I hear about bloody Bamako one more time. We all knew it was I didn't say a crazy idea, but knowing what a destiny life, what that pull is, and how spirit put everything in your path to show you where you should be going. And Chris and I just have always followed our intuition, or what has lit us up. that's exactly what it is, isn't it, Chris? It's like what has lit us up, what sparked something in us. We have I'm being quite serious now, we have never shied away from making those moves, making those steps into the unknown. Yeah, absolutely right. And I guess that's really behind this film today, is that oh my goodness, yeah, if you're aware of the need to change, or you feel like you're being pulled into beginning your destiny life, like, don't worry about what's next. Just go with it. I've made some notes on this because this is what we were initially going to be. Well, this is the story behind it, or the real advice, I guess. So I also channel from spirit. So this is the underlying spirit. So whoever's watching this, however you come to this, know that this bit is being channeled, and it's very much the need to leap, the need to change. You could be in confusion, you could not know, like, see where you're going, but you can see the first few steps in front. You just need to see where it takes you. Like, that is your destiny life. If something is a beacon, something's a lighthouse for you in the distance, go towards it. Go where you need to go now. Yeah, and let go of those thoughts of fear, because the fear will be from society, it will be from culture, it will be from family, it will be from everybody but yourself. If it feels true to you, if you were to walk away from this path that is lit up in front of you, what would that mean for you? If you were to walk away, if you were to shut the door on that destiny path, how would that make you feel? And yeah, if it's the decision that you're going to make, you do have to make the decision. You have to make the walk through the threshold, walk through the door. But it's almost like, before you do that, you can take time, you can gather all the information, you can focus on what you actually need to be able to obtain what's calling you. But don't procrastinate. We can all very much do planning. In fact, Chris did, as I said, quite a few months of planning, but actually in the end he left a bit earlier than he had planned. So if things like, you will be, if you procrastinate too long, or you've, like, when it's the right time, you'll get the push and you will go. So for example, another example is, after, I always take the summer holidays off, to be with children, family, holidays, because I work hard every day, apart from Sundays, Saturday afternoons. I have weekends off, but I work hard. And we work hard. It's love. Oh, we don't call it work, it's just fun. I mean, Chris and I are basically playing all the time, and supporting others. But when we have time, so the summer is kind of like my time off. And for the past, so since the kids go back to school, I sat waiting to get the prod to create another 17-day reconnection experience, and it just wasn't coming. It wasn't coming. So I was tinkering around with other things, and planning actually to do these raised TVs every week, to become more visible. And then suddenly there was a right, now it's time to do that 17-day. And it wasn't with a group of new people coming in to raise. It was actually with people who'd been in for quite a long time, who we'd been working with for a long time, who were ready to work with us on a bigger scale, so we can collectively have more energy, and produce something which is going to be, well, this is the next part of the journey for us in Raise, the blank page. But yeah, I suddenly got the push to do it. So it might be this film is that little push you, or the big shove that you need. I don't know. So I'm just reading my notes. Yeah, and like, don't let others determine how you experience life. That's a hard lesson to learn. And that's why we share good news. There's a magazine, amazing quarterly magazine called Positive News, which I found a few years ago, and I get delivered every quarter. It like, you should get hold of it. It is full of positive news. Like, there's not one negative story in it. It's not like reading like a newspaper or a news magazine. It is just, it uplifts you, it's inspiring, and all the things that we want Raise TV to be and raise. Yeah, so be careful the influences that you are letting into your body, into your mind, into your soul. Like, cut through all that fear. It is, yeah. And it really, it's, if you know you've got to go and do these things, even if you fear that it might fall flat on its face, or like, I didn't know how this was going to turn out when I started doing Facebook lives about the journey that Chris and I were on. So it was after we'd found, so while we were sort of healing and working through our story, and it was my apprenticeship, I think, really, of what we do now. But I didn't know where it was going. I didn't know if it, like, filming us live doing like trance mediumship, where Chris was coming into my body and I was speaking his words, and I mean, you can see me in tears at certain points where I'm making real realizations about the grief that I had been in, like real complicated chronic grief disorder. They would medicalize and label it now as, thank God I didn't get labeled and put on medication, and thank God that didn't happen. But yeah, I was able to, I just knew that I had to do this work, and it made me happy, and it was, I just knew, like, spirit was telling me, Chris was telling me, this needs to be. And then people used to come into my life who were film producers and knew all about basics of filming, and so I'd have a random conversation with them, and this would plant the seed in my head. So everybody is always there. You will be supported. Synchronicities will be happening left, right, and center that will help you on this path. Yeah, so don't stand still with it. Walk with it. Just walk one step at a time. That's all that's needed. And this is your destiny life. And I think what Chris and I do, in a nutshell, is rebirth people as we were rebirthed. Like, we inspire and we support and we empower people to do this themselves, to rebirth themselves, and walk into their destiny life where it's going to benefit humanity. Like, we didn't realize when we started that anybody was even going to know anything about our journey, our story. That wasn't even on our radar. It was just between Chris and I, absolutely personal connection, very insular, very in our bubble, and everybody in Raise, actually, that we've worked with during the 17-day experiences, or in the past groups that we've done, they've all worked through their personal darknesses, and they kind of come out, and we realize that actually we can now share this with others. So the Raise family, the Raise team, is getting bigger and bigger as more and more people go through the experiences, and realize that actually their purpose, the destiny life, is the healing and the transforming and the walking out of the darkness towards the light. But then the purpose of what you're doing evolves, as I've said. Like, we found Chris, then we had to heal, then we had to do apprenticeship, then they're now showing the story. So it will evolve and evolve, but like the purpose or the thing that you're following and the reason you're doing something will change, and it will get wider and wider and bigger as you expand. That's all I need to say. I always get a kind of, and that's it. So if anything I've said in there has resonated with you, yeah, come make your way into Raise, please do. It's free to join. Yeah, it's at the bottom there, Raise with Chris and Han.digital. It's also in the information. We'll pop him back in and out if you want to leave comments. We love to have chats about this, because it's a conversation we have. We open up, you know, it's a conversation everybody needs to be having about how to handle change, how to move past fear, how to like take control of your life. Yeah, that's it. And just allow that power of love to come into you. And like, Raise is a sacred space. It's it's our home, it's our online home for everything, and you can interact with us there. But yeah, if you want to leave comments here, that's great, because it spreads the word. The algorithms work like that. Do subscribe to the channel, that would be amazing. And yeah, just, you can find what you're looking for. Getting a heat in my back now, so yes, you can find what you're looking for. So lots of love to you all, and yeah, I'll see you next week. Okay, lots of love. Bye.